Good morning.
Good morning. This is about to get dark and heavy real quick.
What's your name?
My name's Ethan Ream. I was born and raised here in Tallahassee. Obviously, I've been coming to these meetings for over a year, and you're about to find out why. I remember last year, Commissioner Kaufman said that Katie Maillard needed her own show called Cat the Looter Hunter. So let's talk about how that show would go. As I said, you all know my face, and I've been coming for over a year. When I woke up this morning, I was certainly not planning to talk. But today is the day the world gets to know the truth. So let's talk about looters for a second. For those who don't know, the biggest looting case in terms of restitution requested by DHR was the Marion County employee who used a bulldozer on county land to dig for arrowheads. However, DHR staff screwed it up. They admitted on tape that they watched him for several days and then added the area to the master site file so that they could then charge him with criminal mischief of destroying an archaeological site that didn't exist 2 days earlier. I don't agree with his actions. However, it tells you what DHR has been up to. That's not the worst of it. Does anyone know what the second biggest looter case in DHR history was? That's a question. Does anyone? In 2019, there was a fossil hunter on the Santa Fe River. This case was presented to the commission by Paulette McFadden in 2020. But did you notice DHR never provided an update as to what happened with that looting case, which at the time was the biggest in DHR history? DHR was requesting that the fossil hunter pay $177,932 in restitution for completely destroying a Paleo-Indian site. His home was raided by FWC with DHR members present. As many of you know, site data location is not public record in Florida. And that was done so that people with ill intent couldn't look up a site and go and dig it up. However, DHR is the only one that has access to that information. Not even law enforcement gets it unless DHR provides it. So what DHR did, they were contacted by FWC, and they're like, hey, there's a guy who's been fossil hunting in the Santa Fe. He's been doing it for the last 6 weeks or so. It's totally normal. It's totally legal. DHR freaks out and says, we need to go do a damage assessment because he's digging in an area where there's archaeological sites. So they go out there, and there's 4 people there. The guy, when he was stopped by FWC, he had no artifacts on him. There was no evidence he was doing anything wrong. But DHR told FWC charge him with destroying an archaeological site. They said on multiple occasions that he completely destroyed this Paleo-Indian site that was in the water and dug a 15-meter trench straight through the middle of it. However, what DHR didn't tell FWC or the state attorney was that there was no archaeological site there, and the site that they referred to in their emails was a quarter-mile downstream. It was a hundreds of acres wide terrestrial site, but they claimed he completely destroyed it. So this poor guy, he had to go through the court system for 2 years until the state attorney realized what the heck is going on and dropped the charges. A year and a half later, DHR met with UF. For 5 years, they've been talking about how the fossil permit program was a problem. The meeting notes is written by Paulette McFadden and Katie Maillard state that the Florida Museum of Natural History was presented with a case study of an individual under the guise of fossil hunting who had completely destroyed an underwater Paleo-Indian site. The individual was allowed to plead down to a misdemeanor because of legal issues regarding language associated with the permit, website, and statute, as well as a lack of access to the FHC that guides the program. However, a year and a half before that, Mr. Flanders' charges had been entirely dropped by the state attorney, and DHR knew that, and we have all the evidence to back up everything I'm telling you today. So this statement was false that was made to UF, but UF had no idea that they were being deceived. And so they shut down a portion of the Mayaca River that was outside of the park boundary. As Director Lotane noted, during the grant meeting last month. In May 2023, it became known that DHR was instructing FWC that people were not allowed to fossil hunt on 7 different rivers. It soon became well known, and a week later, UF immediately told DHR via 2 separate emails that this was wrong. These rivers were still open. However, DHR did not rescind this instruction to FWC because they wanted those rivers still to be shut down. And as a result, FWC continued kicking people off of those rivers. Up until 2024, when we exposed DHR's sins, they were still telling FWC to target and profile fossil hunters and using the Santa Fe case as an example of a fossil hunter who had destroyed archaeological resources. No one ever spoke up to what the truth was. And 2 weeks after UF told DHR that those rivers were still open to the public, they continued to spout in their trainings to FWC that the Wasissa was still off limits. Let me tell you another story. Nick Emilio was 16 when DHR first flagged him because he had a YouTube channel where he liked to metal detect on private property. There was no evidence of doing anything wrong. Clearly, though, they kept an eye on him, a minor, because a year later, age 17, DHR, again with no evidence, opened up an FWC investigation on him. Andrew Weber stated, it caught his attention because his Facebook profile is him in a wetsuit. And if you look at his friends, they all look like shady people, judging by the hacky treasure hunt photos they're using as their profile. I'm sure a trip down the rabbit hole with those guys can turn up things too. Again, these were law-abiding citizens with no evidence of any wrongdoing other than posting stuff that they had found on private property or with permits online. Last year, we exposed this intra-agency conspiracy and had agreed to keep it quiet with the Secretary of State. The fossil permit is 40-year-old law that cannot just be switched off. Earlier this year, a fossil hunter discovered the most complete giant armadillo skeleton ever found in North America. I was going to say, what can this commission do? Obviously, you've been now presented with the truth. Several false premises were presented to you over the last several years by DHR, which made it seem that fossil hunting was an actual looting issue. I was going to say that I would advise you to make a motion to drop this as an issue, and that if you continue to pursue this path, our group would ensure that DHR will face ramifications you cannot even conceive of. Just ask Alyssa what happened last year. However, on break, something happened. Judy and Kathleen, would you care to discuss what happened? No. What happened in that room on break? What were you discussing?
Sir, for someone who said that you weren't even going to speak today, it feels like you had a lot of prepared comments.
I had a good hour and a half.
I do have concerns, and I told Chair Bent that she said the comments that she said. She was concerned she may have said too much, and I said, no, I don't think so. I wish Dr. Miar was here today, but apparently she's at a conference. So that is why I want this discussed in the realm of a public meeting, noticed. I want this discussed at the next meeting.
Why did you discuss it in that room? Why did you discuss that,
I'm not going to sit here and suggest, listen to you suggest that we are somehow doing something wrong.
I was outside the room listening to you guys talk and break sunshine law. And then you said to Dr. Bent, you go in first. And she came out, and 30 seconds later,
we're here in the public meeting. I believe we have the attorney online.
I think John's still online.
So we're here. We're all here in the realm of the public meeting. I really want this issue to come back to the next historic commission meeting because I want updates on the stuff that we haven't discussed really in about a year, as you said.
Please clear the air right now. What was discussed in that room?
I just told you. I'm glad she brought up the things that she brought up. I think it's a bigger issue.
I'm going to read to you for a second from the Sunshine Law Manual.
Hold on. Madam Chair, look, we have public comment set aside for purposes of making sure that the public gets their opportunity to speak, but it's generally not a free-for-all. So to the extent that we
I will say this, I'm happy to be done. I've gotten what I wanted. You on tape admitting that you guys broke Sunshine Law. I do not expect you guys to be here in February. Thank you.
Well, on that happy note, is there any other public comment?
If you're online and wish to make public comment, please raise your hand so that we can recognize you. Or you may type anything you'd like to say into the questions panel. Rick Gonzalez, you have your hand up.
Yeah, like I said earlier today, I've been on this commission for quite some time, and I've never heard of accusations like the ones that we just heard. And we have a very good board. We have excellent board members. Nothing is ever done here in secrecy. Everything is always done in the sunshine of the great state of Florida. So just wanted to share that.
Well, and, before we adjourn, Madam Chair, I'd like to suggest that our legal counsel, Mr. Morris, consult with our staff so that we can set in place a more structured public comment section for our future meetings. And within time, place, manner constraints, I'm sure Mr. Morris can come up with a proposal, and then perhaps we will be ready at our next meeting to make sure that we have a more structured public comment. Because I don't want anybody being denied, but we do need structure in it so that we don't become sort of a free-for-all. For the benefit of the public and staff.
Right.
Madam Chair, I'd like to add to what Parker has said, if I may. I'd like to know whether this question is even within our jurisdiction under statutory law. I don't know that it is. At least I don't remember hearing anything about this now. As Parker has said, we sometimes just have kind of open conversations at the end of our meetings when the public wishes to speak to it. But I'd like our counsel at the same time, if he would, to advise us concerning the role of the commission on a question of this kind. Not the sunshine issue, but the question of our jurisdiction, if that's possible.
I don't know, John, if you're still on to speak, but my understanding is that you're an advisory board
Right.
to us.
Yes.
And in the past, as Judy well knows, there have been issues that you have taken up over time on your own and voted as a board to support or not. And beyond that, so that's sort of the history of the board, but we can do a short presentation even on the next commission meeting to kind of clarify what your responsibilities are.
Okay. I'd also like to know, this gentleman referred several times to we. I don't know who we is.
I don't even.
Do you have some kind of an organization that you're representing as an advocate?
There is
I'm
a.
a fossil hunter.
Oh, go ahead. I didn't know you were still here.
Sorry, I'm a fossil hunter. I have several buddies who love to fossil hunt, many of which have made donations to science that are first of their kind, have animals named after them. And we heard 2.5 years ago, that the CHR was trying to make it illegal to collect fossils. And those are
Okay, I just wanted to know who you
never
represent.
found out what was really
So
going
you
on.
represent yourself.
I am by myself, but I have several buddies.
I know, but you represent yourself before this body and no one else. Thank you.
I represent my group.
What group?
Group of 7 or 8 guys.
Well,
Madam Chair, that's all I got.
Thanks, Parker. Any other comments or questions? All right. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn. We are adjourned.